I see that most of the organization are understanding that sometimes not one model can deal with all their data and all their customers. And then when we are identifying specific places, they can use different models to different population and have just something like a router that's saying that if you are from this kind of population, you should go to this model. We built our platform in a way that it can be agnostic to the type of the model. You don't need a different technique, a different settings in order to work with different. And we want to allow you to have one inventory when all your AI and machine learning are inside, in order to really know what are the risks in all your model, in all your use cases.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So, how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/eye on AI. That's EYEONAI, all run together. Oracle.com/eye on AI. That's oracle.com/eye on AI.
So, first of all, Craig, it's very nice to be here, and thank you for this opportunity. I don't know how many of your audience are started in the tech industry, moved to work for the government, and went back to the tech industry. So I'm one of those, and I started my career in tech. I worked for VMware company, for a cyber company, but then I understood that a lot of what interests me is the politics and economy. So I did a degree in PPE, philosophy, politics, and economy, and a
Hmm.
master's degree in economy. And I joined the National Bank in order to allow them to do the risk. So I
Hmm.
joined the risk department in the National Bank, and then I worked for the Ministry of Finance. So all my
Uh,
life, I'm in the intersection between regulation, risk, technology, and this is what led me to go back to the tech industry, but to go in the understanding of what are the regulators are looking for and how we can really be able to bring innovation, but care about our customers, our users. And I started by working in a synthetic data company, allowing the financial industry to use the private data in a safe manner. And there I met with the problem that we are trying to solve now in CitrusX. So all my career is about risk and regulation and high risk organization. So this is what's interests me. It's all about what I'm doing and looking to solve in this, for us in order to be innovative, but also to be trustworthy and
yeah.
be safe. Yeah.
And so tell me about CitrusX. What is it? What is it offering, a service or a product?
So we are offering a product. We are a platform company, and we are some kind of a AI enabler. We are
Mhm.
enable the high risk organization, if it's a financial organization, insurance, digital health, security, but we are mainly focused on the finance and insurance, and allowing them to bring innovation and bring new products and services to their clients, but doing it with knowing what are the risks, knowing how they can comply with regulation, and they can make sure it's doing properly. So we are kind of allowing these companies to doing risk assessment and validation of their model, but mitigate the risk, but in scale. Not doing just one model, two models, but to be able to really implement a lot of services, a lot of AI and machine learning for different use cases, and to be trustworthy and responsible with them.
Yeah, and the regulatory environment is evolving. It remains very fragmented. And what markets are you focused on? Because each market is a little bit different.
Yeah, so we are focusing mainly in North America, but also in some of Europe and UK. Europe is like being the, as we saw before in the GDPR, so the same is happening now with the EU AI
Right.
Act. So they are the frontier of the regulation, and they really created what is high risk organization, and we are targeting those high risk. So for us, they did the job to divide who needs us in the most critical way, and we are working for them in order for them to allow better services, but also to be able to do it complying with regulation, but not
Right.
only complying with regulation, but also responsibly and trustworthy. Because in order for people to use AI, they have to trust it and really be
Right.
able to understand it. And this is what we are trying to uh, solve for those organizations and provide them.
Yeah. Yeah, in the US market, I mean they're following the EU in some respects, and as they did with GDPR, but the US market's very fragmented. Different states are passing different
Laws, yeah.
AI safety laws, and they're not all aligned. So do you track each state, or how do you manage that?
So it's a very good question, but we see, like we saw before with the GDPR and CCPA, that in the end, a lot of the companies prefer to go to the more, the extreme of the regulation in
Right.
order to make sure that they cover everything. So the same we see it in the US. But I have to say that some of the regulation that we are seeing that the companies are aware of are regulation that already exists, because now companies that are doing lending with machine learning, they still have to be compliant with Fair Lending Act. So although
Right.
it's like an old regulation, they still need in their new and innovative products and models to comply with it. So we
That's
are
right.
allowing them not only to comply with the new AI regulation, but also with the existing one in order to continue the work and continue bringing the services that they want to bring, especially now with the interest rates and everything that anyone
Yeah.
wants to lend money and give those things.
And so tell me about the platform. What does it do? Is it yeah, I mean I could speculate, but what does it do?
So, Citrusx is an end-to-end platform. It was really important for us to be in all the AI lifecycle, in the pre-production and in the production, sorry. And we are validating, monitoring, and explaining AI models in order for companies to make sure that their model is accurate, robust, and governed. So we are doing all the procedure from the minute the model is developed or bought from a third party vendor, allowing us to validate the model, explain it, making sure that also the non technical people really understand how the model is acting. Afterwards, we're doing all kind of governance measurements, fairness testing, all the things that you need, documentation, reporting for the regulation. And afterwards, after all the different stakeholders approve the model, understand the risk of the model, and make sure that they can take it to production, we are monitoring the model in order to make sure that it keep doing what they thought it would do. Also, it's remaining with the same risk level, and you know when you need to retrain it. And all of
Yeah.
this is based on our proprietary technology that we put a lot of efforts in order to create. We saw that the open source solutions are not sufficient. So we understood that we need to have a different paradigm in order to solve this complex problem. So we put a lot of effort in the beginning of the company to to really research and have a different and a unique way using synthetic data in order to really understand what are the risks, how you can validate, and especially how you can mitigate those risks in order to take the best model that you can have to production.
Yeah. And the models that you're looking at, are they What percentage of them have an element of generative AI in them, which is notoriously difficult to explain?
So at the moment, most of the clients that we have are having in production already machine learning models for lending models, mortgages, KYC, fraud, and those kind of use cases. So this is what is already in production. But meantime, we are working with design partners, and if some of your listeners wants to work with us to try it out, mostly on RAG models in LLM, because we see that those high risk organizations will go in the LLM world to the RAG, to the knowledge graph, in order to keep a little bit safeguard of what they are doing with the Gen AI.
Right, right. So on the existing models that are in production, those are supervised learning models or rule based models. What kinds of models are those?
So most of the models that we are working with are the more traditional machine learning models. So there are supervised models that can be random forest, XGBoost, and so on, even neural networks. It depends on the use case, and we built our platform in a way that it can be agnostic to the type of the model. You don't need a different technique, a different settings in order to work with different. And we want to allow you to have one inventory when all your AI and machine learning are inside, in order to really know what are the risks in all your model, in all your
Yeah,
use case, and to be able to really know how to manage it and work with it, and not to have like a procedure of 6 to 9 months until you're taking the model to production, but to reduce the time to market in order to have the best and most updated model with the updated data going to production.
yeah. The uh, the, walk me through a use case. I'm a bank and I'm using uh, a recommendation engine to uh, decide whether or not I'm lending to somebody, but I would like to transition to a Gen AI system to leverage a foundation model to you know maybe inform the lending officer of policies and help make decisions. What do they do? Do they upload the model to the platform? Do they?
So
Yeah,
the so the first stage that they deploying our platform, most of our platform, most of our existing clients are doing putting us in their private cloud or on-prem, because of the high risk
right,
of the organization they are. So they are onboarding to the system the model and the training data in order to our work to start working. We are generating synthetic data in order to map all the data space, and in order to be able to show and identify for our clients what are the risks, where are they, and how they can identify and give them action items, how to reduce them and mitigate them. And then
I see.
from the moment that the data scientist finish his work, he's onboarding to the system, the model risk management, who are the ones that checks the model and need to validate them, get an alert that the new model is in the system and he needs to start to do his work. He can create his own thresholds because of the specific use case that he has. And after he create the threshold, he see all the results and see what is good or not, or bad, comparing to what he created in the, he decided. And we are, because of our unique technology, we are not giving only the performance metrics, but we also providing a robustness metrics, a certainty metrics, vulnerability metrics, all kind of additional metrics that will give you a full picture of how your model is really acting. After this
Right.
has been done, we are moving to the explainability step. When the business unit or the risk officer needs to check if the reasoning behind the model is what's relevant to what he knows from the business case. And after this been done, we are moving to the governance metrics. And we check for all kind of government metrics, especially if it's lending, about fairness, It can be sensitive features that are inside the model, that can be sensitive features that are outside but are some correlation to the model, the features that are inside of the model. And we showing them all kind of the fairness metrics. We are identifying where are the fairness issues and how you're supposed to deal with them. And after everyone approving the model can go to production and start working in production and give better service and better lending propositions.
Right. And for each implementation in each industry, does the platform have access to like the Fair Lending Act or FTC rules or FDA rules or whatever it is, whatever industry it is that uh, built into the model for that implementation, or is that something that's done on top of this other analysis?
So we started by giving and providing our platform, especially for the financial and insurance industry. So we're working mainly with those legislation and regulation. We did work with a legal firm about the Fair Lending Act because it's something that is coming up from most of our clients, and we are
Right.
showing them how the metrics that you need to show in the Fair Lending Act is aligned to the metrics that we are showing in order for them to feel comfortable with complying with this regulation. So in this case, we are really focusing on this on those things, but also because sometimes there are regulation or specific things that companies want to take on themselves. If it's ISO or those kind of things, we are allowing them to change all the thresholds depending on what they want. We are suggesting what the threshold should be, but it can be customized by the client as he wants to take, what is the level of the risk he wants to take, and how he wants to work with the model in order for all the people and all the stakeholders in the end to feel comfortable by using the system. And also different stakeholders can create different thresholds and see the measurements in a different way in order to get different alerts that relevant to what they're doing. I
Yeah.
just want to add that it was important for us to give information for different stakeholders. So we have a Python SDK that is relevant to the data scientist, a web UI that it's more for the risk officer, the management, but also reports that can be relevant to the board of directors for the regulators, because in the end, a lot of those regulation in the directors will be responsible for them.
Right. Right. And so the risk officer has the dashboard or whatever and can watch everything. But when it comes time to file a report with regulators, is it literally like I need a report for the, I don't know who you report to, the for the Fair Lending Act, and you click a button and it spits out a report that's formatted that makes sense to that regulator?
Yes, exactly. So all the you can in advance, if you want to create your own reports, you can customize it. But and then when you are in the system in a specific model, you just push and click a button, and then you can get and export the report with the information. It can be report for validation, report for explainability, report for fairness, report for specific regulation. It can be or about a use case or about performance metrics. It depends on what you want to have in your reports.
Yeah. How often do you run across a situation where you the whatever system is in the that the client has doesn't meet the regulatory standards, that your system does the review and the analysis and it falls short of regulatory standards, and what do you do in that case?
So it's a very good question because nowadays, at the end, some people knew how to do those kind of metrics, but they are doing it only for the average of all the models. And what is
Yeah.
unique about us that we can identify the places that you cannot see. And this is why most of the time when we are doing like a POC, when we want to show you in your data what the value that we can bring, and with your model, we are showing them that although you thought everything is okay, you're still having a specific place with a problem. And those are really eye-opening for most of the clients that afterwards becoming our clients from the POC, because they understand how much they didn't know because of
Yeah.
using the average scores. So with us, we can really identify that specific population that they have less customer from, those might be the ones that are problematic. And because we're generating this synthetic data, we can overcome the lacking of the data in one place
Right.
by showing them what's really problematic there.
Yeah. And then what sort of do you advise on mitigation, or is it then up to them to fix that?
So we are giving action items how you should mitigate the problem and reduce the risk. We are not doing the change in the model because we want to be the
Yeah.
independent risk
Sure.
validator.
Yeah. Of
So we don't
course.
want
Yeah.
to touch the model, but we are telling you and give you all the tools how you can really solve this. And this is why it was important for us to have the Python SDK connected and speaking the same language to the UI, because then the risk officer can tell the data scientist, take a look at this in this area, this segment, and the data scientist can use our system to really target this segment, identify the problem, and afterwards to solve it.
Yeah. And does that result in, for example, in a lending organization, in adjusting their lending policies? I mean, ultimately that's what has to happen. You can't massage the data or tweak in their, I'm not talking about your platform, but
Yeah.
in their model, you can't just kind of hide it. You have to, if they're biased against an underserved population, they have to do something proactive to address that with the underserved population so that the data is more balanced. I mean, do organizations do that?
I see that most of the organization are understanding that sometimes not one model can deal with all their data and all their customers. And then when we are identifying specific places, they can use different models to different population and have just something like a router that's saying that if you are from this kind of population, you should go to this model. And if you are from this population, you should go to this model. And in each of the model, you will have much higher accuracy, performance, fairness scores,
Right.
because you didn't put everyone in the same pile.
Right, right. Actually, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating, and it seems to be coming at a good time. So, what are you doing about and what is in the tech in your product? Uh, uh, is it and what are you doing about this generative AI wave that's coming, and frankly with the new reasoning agents that Sam Altman's talking about, uh, we're going to go through another big shift, I suspect, and a lot of systems are going to be are going to come online. So how do you keep up with that those changes?
So it was really important for us to work with our clients and to see how they progressed in the Gen AI and to which use cases and what's interest them. Because the Gen AI is still like a lot of the people don't know what is explainability there, what you want to gain and understand from there. So we didn't want to create something that won't be relevant. So we are working with our current clients as they working towards the Gen
Right,
AI in order to create the right solution. And this is why we saw that we need to focus in the RAG models, because this is the direction that they will
right,
go to. Most of the high risk organization won't go to the open source kind of models. They will go more to the co-pilots one, or those kind of models that it's based on their own data. So this
right.
is how we are targeting this market and targeting our solution in this world.
Yeah. And then, excuse me, in your product, is there a Gen AI component? What kinds of models do you have in the background in the under the hood?
So I really like your question because it was important for us not to have AI in our platform because we don't want to be another black box.
That's right.
So we don't want, no one needs to validate our technology. We are using statistic and math in our technology,
Right.
which is a open box, white box, how you want to call it, in order for people to feel comfortable using us. So from day one, we understood that in order to have a solution for this problem, we have to get far from doing another AI on top of it.
Yeah.
We can use, afterwards Gen AI to just generate documentation or
Right.
reports, but in the base of our technology is proper math, statistic, and things that we can really have the evidence and showing it and let people to feel very confident with.
Actually, that's fascinating. Yeah. And how much? What are the toughest models uh, to satisfy the explainability uh, demands of regulators for? That was a convoluted question, but where do you run into a problem with explainability?
So I have to say that at the moment, the only problem sometimes with explainability, it's sometimes that it's not the same language that people are thinking because sometimes it's the language of the features, and you need to move it to the language of the clients that it's understand. So we created some kind of a dictionary that takes some of the features to our to our words that people can understand and interact with and know what does it means. But other than this, it was important for us, comparing to the open source solutions, to create something different, that it won't be problematic to do the explainability for local explanation, global clusters, for groups, for all of those, in order to give real confidence, like 100% confidence that you really understand how models are working. So,
Yeah, I didn't mean the explainability of your product. When you're uh, dealing with a client and they need to explain how they reach a certain conclusion,
mhm.
uh, what kind of models do you run into over and over again? And it's like, yeah, that's a problem because you really can't explain that, or how do you explain it?
So
Again, I'm talking about the clients models that you're
yeah,
evaluating.
so we are giving them the explainability layer in order for them to be able to explain it. So we see that uh, they can explain the model in a way that it will be, in the end, relevant and understandable to the non-technical people. As as we see the model that in production and meet the clients, beforehand it was only like they felt that they need only to have like the default kind of explainability, just to give a, a reasoning about like what the model is made a specific decision. But
Right.
nowadays, when the regulation is becoming tougher and there's starting to be lawsuits and all kind of talking about this, companies understand that they need to be able to give a specific explainability, and to be able not to to have feature importance and feature impact, and to give you the understanding of the counterfactual means like how you can change the decision, what are the changes in your features that you need to do in order to change the decision that you received. So they need to give a much more wider ways and definitions of explainability, less than just the what is the feature that affecting the model.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about I mean, even supervised learning, just neural networks. You can explain how it works,
Hmm.
but you can't really, if for when you're dealing with very large systems, you can't really track the the changes of the weights and parameters that eventually get to an outcome, because they're, or maybe you can, it seems to me you can't, because there's so many. And then in generative AI, I'm thinking about Llama 3.1. I mean, a lot of your clients presumably are using open source with a RAG component. Um, but Llama 3.1, Meta has never uh, shown it's revealed its underlying training data.
Mhm.
So even if you have Llama connected to a RAG, how do you understand how Llama works? I mean, those kinds of, are those the kinds of problems that you face, or am I off
So
in?
So probably we will face those, but at the moment in production, we are facing with neural networks and machine learning, which are all kind of trees, and we are able with our technology, because we are creating this data space also in neural networks, to be able to give them the definition of the explainability behind each and every answer, and we can do
Right.
it in production or also in pre-production, in order for you to understand how the model is really going to act and what are the features that are affecting those. And is, as many features that it will you will have in the model, so you will have, different proportions for different um, features, but we also created something that we called feature bias, because sometimes you see that there is a prediction that is affecting by one or a few features, and it's not really it's not good, because you want to have some kind of way that each and every feature that you put in the system have some effect on the decision. Because if you have one or two features that are affecting too much, a small portion of change in those features can change all your answer. So a lot of the time we also alerting you to know to look that you have a few too few few features that are affecting too much, and you should take care of it in order not to have too many vulnerabilities or changes that you might happen in the real time.
Yeah. Have you gone through a full cycle with any of the clients where they're reporting to regulators, and with you reports generated by your platform? Uh, and I mean, presumably, as you start this process of clients reporting to regulators, regulators are, this is all new to them as well. Uh, Coming up with questions, even if they have a report. I mean, how much of a learning curve is there on the reporting side?
So I have to say that it was important for us to sit with the regulators. So we met with some of the regulators. We sat in round tables in different countries in order to hear also from the regulators what they are looking for to get. I have to say that some of them don't really know yet what they are looking for to
Right.
get. But because we are starting in a way that in some use cases that already have regulation, so we try to keep as in the known language that they familiar with, and not
Yeah.
to, so we are taking in fairness the measurements that they know or things that they are familiar with, in order to put in our report that they can feel comfortable with. We are not trying to create a new language that they will get lost with. We are trying to let them have all the information and feel comfortable about it.
Yeah. And in that process, do you sit or do you communicate with specific uh, regulatory bodies, show them the reports that you generate, and say, is, would this satisfy you, or is there something missing, or yeah.
So I have to say that some of the regulators are feeling more comfortable to say their own opinion, because sometimes they don't want to be, for
Yeah.
one company or the other,
Right.
but they're
Right.
giving you like a some kind of thumbs up of you are in the right direction. But I have to say, as I mentioned before, I'm not sure that they really know 100% what they're looking for. So a lot of the regulation, for example, in North America, are looking for the European to see what they are looking for. But we see that
Right.
at the end, all the regulators want to have information allowing them to see that the company did a procedure. They
Right.
don't
Right.
really know, check every bit and byte, but they want to see that they know, and it's important for the company to know what is the data, how it was collected, what is the procedure that the validation went through, what is the governance measurements, the fairness, that to see that there is a process, there is a way that they really making sure that companies feel that they need to be accountable to the process, to the responsibility of using AI and machine learning correctly.
Yeah. That's the uh, how crowded is this space? Because it's a new space
Hmm.
for your company. Um, and I've spoken to a few people that are attacking it in different ways. And some of the big companies, I know IBM has a whole suite of tools for fairness and
Hmm.
explainability. So, is the market, as this regulation comes on, so vast that you don't worry about competition because there's enough business for everybody, or is it a tight market because they're big players and you're trying to uh, get attention or get credibility or get whatever to play?
So of course it's not yet a crowded market because it's a new market. It's
Yeah.
true that what you said about the big companies, but in the end, when you were speaking to the risk officer, the business unit, they are not capable to use really the very complex technical
Right.
things of all the big companies. This is why when we are targeting those people, it's pretty new market when they are looking for something that resonate with what they know, the knowledge, the technical knowledge, the understanding of AI machine learning that they have, in order for them to feel comfortable approving this model. We are working already for several years, and we saw how all kind of companies trying to did more observability or more cyber risk of AI, but none of them really trying to target the risk, the mitigation of the risk, the understanding of the risk. And this is what we are coming to solve and to target, allowing the model risk management, the stakeholders to feel comfortable about knowing the risk and assuring the risk are taken care.
Yeah. And are you targeting medium-sized firms or Fortune 100? It seems Fortune 100 will have a massive IT department that's either working on their own solutions or is using IBM or somebody else. I mean, where do you see your market fit?
So we are targeting a financial institution. They can be big, as the biggest banks, like the T1. It can be smaller because they bought maybe from a third party vendor, and now they need to be accountable to the third party vendor. But what's helped us very also with the big companies is the fact that for example, in the EU and also in New York, about like HR, we saw it that they are requiring a independent way to validate and
Yeah.
everything. So a lot of the companies don't want them inside, data scientists to be the one that developing the model, checking the model, doing all the validation and checking the balances there. So they sometimes the management looking for a solution from outside to tell them what is wrong, what is right, how they can manage it, and have all the process, providing them the ability to really feel accountable to this process. And a lot of
Yeah.
the time, also the board of directors can tell the management, I want to have a company doing this and that in order to get the reports, to feel comfortable, to see everything
Yeah.
by myself.
Yeah, I can see the independence and also the fact that there's no AI in
Yeah.
the underlying analysis. It doesn't make it even cloudier.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, is important. That's so. How long have you guys been around?
So we are here almost 3 years. We
Hmm.
started the beginning was to put a lot of efforts in our technology, in our proprietary technology, in building the real change and the way that we're generating the synthetic data and allowing our customers to work with a different paradigm that can give them the full transparency and accountability to what's going on. And then when we felt comfortable about the technology, we went to growing the business and working and showing proof of concept that moved to paying clients.
Yeah, and the the as you said, a lot of these regulators don't have their sea legs yet. Uh, how long do you think it will be before these regulations really gel and people understand what the regulations are? That's one question. The other, right now, it's so fragmented. I mean, granted, people are following the EU, but each state has a little bit different take. Each country has its own existing regulatory bodies. Uh, do you think there will be a harmonization where there's a standard that's at least covers the Western world? I mean, China and Russia
Yeah.
are different matters, but do you think there will be that harmonization, and how long do you think before just the base regulations get defined in a precise way?
So as I see it, it seems like a lot of the regulators will look at what's going on in the European Union, as I mentioned before, because they are like the frontier of it. So I feel like a lot of the companies will go to see what there's almost, although it's the most strict one, but they would be want to be there, similar to what happened in the GDPR. But I think that also 2025 will be positively the year that everyone needs to start to be aligned with it if they didn't do it before, because most of the regulation are becoming relevant already. And also people see that they are getting lawsuits, they're having mistakes. We have already a lot of mistakes of, chatbot that's selling cars for $1 and doing all kind of crazy stuff. Uh, Banks that are getting lawsuits for all kind of discrimination problems. So I feel it doesn't have to be only the regulation but also the management that understand that he needs, in order to be able to deploy AI, he needs to do it responsibly and know what are the risks and validate it.
Yeah. Actually, that's interesting when you mention all kinds of lawsuits, because a lot of those lawsuits never hit the press. So people are kind of unaware. Is there a lot of litigation going on under the surface around this stuff?
So I see now in the world of Gen AI, a lot of the for because the regulation are not already everything in place, a
Mhm.
lot of the lawsuits are regarding the privacy issue of the data
Right.
of all of those. So we are just seeing what's going to happen at the next stage after those regulation of how the model is really acting will come in place. I'm sure that it will be the same amount of lawsuits and things are getting to about the new regulation.
Yeah. And is most of that litigation in the United States, or is that happening elsewhere as well?
A lot of it is also in Europe as well.
Is
Yes.
there anything that I haven't talked about that we should talk about? How do people access the platform? I mean, you were saying it's on prem
Mm-hmm.
or in the private cloud, but presumably there's also an API
Yeah.
offering for people that are not concerned about the privacy of their data.
Yeah, so of course, customer people can approach us through our website to get a demo and see everything, to play with it as part of the proof of concept in a SaaS environment, and then they can decide how they want to work with it. Is it on their premise, on a private cloud, on regular SaaS? What's interest and more relevant for them? So we are giving all the opportunities. We are totally agnostic to the infrastructure, so you can work with any cloud environment. I have to say that our experience so far is that a lot of the companies wants a private cloud, but we are
Yeah.
open to all kind of direction and implementations.
Yeah. And what's the website that they would go to?
So it's CitrusX .ai. Yeah,
Okay, so it's citrus like a citrus fruit with an X at the end.
yeah.
CitrusX
.ai.
AI.
Yeah,
I'm
because
curious. Yeah.
XAI is the explainable AI. So,
Ah,
and citrus is the fruit that you want to squeeze. So we are squeezing more from the AI. We are allowing you to get more from your AI.
oh, that's interesting. Okay, CitrusX
Yeah.
AI. AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So, how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/eye on AI. That's EYEONAI, all run together. Oracle.com/eye on AI. That's oracle.com/eye on AI.